Call the meeting to order. People of American flag and civil rights of the pledge of allegiance.
Here.
Has he been deployed to Europe or did he move to Europe?
I think he moved. He moved. I've been talking to him a long time.
Yeah, but I've seen his names on there. Barb? These are non-members.
No, I think it was December. Yes.
Barb is one here. Rich is here. Crecelius is here.
Thank you for his military service. Yeah. Yeah, I met him.
I don't think we have a quorum.
I don't think so. So you cannot do approval of minutes or any action items today. You already played, so.
I'll have a copy of the agenda. We want to approve the different issues in relation to the Crecelius.
Okay. I think there's a lot of activity going on out there, but I think I'm going to start out by talking a little bit about what's happening with the homeless veteran stand down, which I think the easiest way to sum it up is probably within the next 3 meetings, it'll no longer be called the homeless veteran stand down. It'll have some kind of name talking about some type of diversionary or amnesty court for veterans in active military. What this means is, one, the activities outside in the park, the party activities are over. Doesn't mean we couldn't do another party, but it won't necessarily be for homeless veterans. I think I stated at the last meeting, we had about 2% of the population was under the age of 36. So we're not catching anybody from the new campaigns. And 85% of them the participants were age 55 and over. So there's other splinter groups and activities that are popping up. The VA's doing smaller events that are stand-down like activities. And I think what we're going to be doing here is concentrating on 2 things, and both of them be early intervention efforts, and one would be early intervention for veterans and military that have mental health issues, drug issues, and the other one that goes hand in hand would be criminal justice issues. We have expanded drastically in this area as far as what's going on the second floor of this building. And at our last event, we had St. Louis City Municipal Court. And yesterday at our meeting, we had a circuit judge. This is the second circuit judge from St. Louis County that has expressed a commitment to get the county municipality and plural municipalities involved in the effort. So, and we talked about a number of ways to do that, because obviously we can't have 87 judges down here with all the municipalities. But what was discussed was for a 2-hour period, having those judges available, that they could be reached by telephone, and the circuit judge from St. Louis County could basically act upon, would get their approval to dismiss charges or whatever had to be done. So we're becoming much more focused, and again, we're concentrating on younger veterans and active military. We also expanded yesterday because it's just kind of like, well, it makes sense, but we're also going to be working with family members. So I'm kind of amazed that we've gotten to this point, but there hasn't been any objection so far. You were to me, I mean,
This is really exciting, Bob, and you've done a great job, because this is very important. Like the man from Jefferson City said that within hours, all his time slots were filled with services. So this is a really big deal, and it's changing to accommodate the needs of the veterans today. And it's a real big shift in thinking, and it's important, really important. So it's exciting.
Again, maybe it's because I'm old, but I just got sick of the parties, and haircuts, and I know those are nice things, but I don't know what we accomplish long term. So again, this is an early intervention. It's alternatives to incarceration. We have received approval from the person that runs the inpatient drug treatment program with the VA. We will be allowed to put veterans into the VA hospital. Not veterans, active military, which is a pretty new thing. So these concepts that nobody ever touched on before, it's like for some reason with this particular group, we haven't had anybody walk at all at this point. So I think it's just because its time has come. So, and then there's also discussions as to how do we incorporate that into the day-to-day or maybe weekly activities that would be taking place here. So some of the things that we're doing there, because I think we're also going to have veteran service officers, which will be able to check out benefits. Perhaps one day a week or one afternoon a week, we could have the VFW and the other organizations rotating their people through where we have coverage for that. It's your space, I know it's limited, but we could do that at a desk downstairs out in where you're going by the elevators and stuff. It doesn't require much office space.
But you might want a place with some privacy.
It would be nice, but we could get, if you didn't have it, we can make that work.
There's a couple different things you could do.
Yeah.
But again, I bring it up, obviously nobody, but again, these are just things that are being bantered about, but I think it would look nice on some type of poster or something in the lobby showing that on the odd-dated Thursdays or whatever, that for a certain time period, we would have people here to provide certain services for veterans and active military and their families. So, I said I wasn't going to say much, but there's a lot happening. And then the other thing I want to mention is we have a dear friend of this organization in this building that is retiring next month. Ann Chance is retiring. I don't know if there's anything we can do as a group, but I think she should be recognized if we possibly can. Ann has just been incredible as far as helping out with events, with parking, the park department, anybody out there that's necessary to do whatever we have to do. She has always kind of greased that for us and helped us get through it. Helped us get cost waived and all kinds of stuff. So I want to point out that she's really been a friend to this group. And I don't know who they're going to get to replace her because it's tough.
Several people.
You said it's next month?
I think at the end of June.
End of June?
Yeah, sometime in June. She said she's retiring. I think she's serious.
I thought she tried to do this once before.
Well, she was gonna retire, and then she said, I'm gonna carry this thing with Soldiers Memorial through, and she
Right.
did. And otherwise, she would have retired several years ago. So, and she really has this on good, solid standing for doing particular things.
And I've been working with her on Fair St. Louis, and that's, she and I are very involved with that, and have been for a number of years. And so that's pretty close to that 4th of July, so I will touch base with her.
Bob, can I ask you a question about the amnesty stuff you're thinking
Mhm.
about? Where does that stuff happen now?
Right here.
In the
assembly.
In the
In
assembly.
the assembly room. So we had one court the last time, and we were back there talking with the judge that was doing it. And the question was, you think we could have 2 judges up here doing it? And he said, why not?
But now you're saying you want to do it every week, not.
Oh, no, not that. Oh, no.
Thank you. Okay, I misheard.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was
I
perfectly clear in my head. No, we're talking about other activities, but no, I'm not gonna bring a judge and have a courtroom in this building. No, this would be 1 or 2 people that would be providing some type of service, like working with discharge upgrades, helping a family member, access VA benefits. You might get a lot of elderly folks where they're trying to, is that a bad term? It's better than geezer, I know that, but,
What do they need to do that? Do they just need a computer?
they've got their own computers,
So
and
it's
you've got
just
Wi-Fi, so they can work off of Wi-Fi. Like Patrice Willis and I could start doing it right now if we wanted to. Patrice is the homeless veteran coordinator with the VA, so she has a laptop. We could do everything we had to do anywhere in your building. And it doesn't require a lot of privacy. We've done it before at mass feeding sites, so we're used to doing this in shelters and places like that. So,
Oh, Mark, you can.
Yeah.
but it's the kind of thing that looks neat on a poster where you're showing a schedule as to what group would be in your building, and then I think the key is you set a particular time and day of the week aside, so people know that something happens on Thursdays at noon or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I regret missing your meeting yesterday. I know that happened yesterday. So
Well, you got even with me for missing your meeting, which I'm sorry about too.
now we're at a truce. I know Marvin went there. He told me
Yeah,
years
Marvin
ago.
was
Yeah,
there.
I haven't seen him yet today.
This is
We'll catch
different,
up.
well, we did it 1520, and we had to stand by, was it about a year ago, a year and a half ago?
It's very similar to what we did at 1520 Market. It's just we moved the courts over here, and we won't have as many auxiliary services. But one of the services I think we will have on an ongoing basis, at least at the stand-down replacement for whatever that is having veteran service officers, which brings the Legion, the Veterans of Foreign War, Purple Heart, Order of Purple Heart, and all those organizations. So again, they could rotate through it because we've already had the VFW make a request to do that, at which point we told them that if we can't do it for just one organization, we'd have to do it for all. Mainly because I didn't want to have to look at you afterwards.
And I would turn to you and just give you a look, and you knew you had to go change it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, oh, so I might as well just not avoid the look altogether.
So have you talked with the veteran service officers from the different organizations yet?
No, but
Okay.
we'll be able to do that. I go to their meetings, but I'm kind of like with the city. I don't have a cool hat or anything. But,
Yeah, that messes up your hair. I hate wearing that hat.
but anyway, I think that will, because they have, what is it, NAVO or whatever, where they
Yeah.
meet. So certainly you could help me do that presentation because you're more comfortable with that set of folks than I am probably.
You're just as comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's going to help veterans, they're going to try to find a way to help.
Yeah. And again, if we did the rotation, you've got all these organizations that would be coming through, and they all have their own veteran service officers. They're competitive.
Take Cassie with you.
Yeah, I normally do in situations like that, but yeah, so,
She can find all the right words.
yes. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on, but I think The ongoing weekly activity or every other week activity or monthly activity would be a very small thing with organizations rotating and providing 2 or 3 different kinds of services.
So they would, then if whatever veteran came to them here, then they would stick with that veteran as they went back to their regular
Right, they would
office.
become the,
The point of contact.
right, the point of contact.
Additional,
They would have, yeah, they would be,
they take them into their
Right, so-
sub-clientele.
correct. So they would get, that would give them an opportunity to get their numbers up.
Right.
Next on the agenda.
Just like what
As
they're
soon as that Bruce kind of like,
We would report was on the American Legion St. Louis Caucus Centennial Celebration, which is on May 9th.
You're talking to me.
Yes.
yes.
It's this room and I can hardly tell what you're saying. But I assumed you might be since I was next on the agenda.
Yes.
Well, I think Mark can attest to what great success we had with celebrating the Legion's 100th anniversary. And because you weren't on the end of getting them to come here, but you were on the end of delivering the product. And it was a bit of work, I'm sure, especially the big reception and everything. But it went off really well. I'll pass this around, and if anybody wants to keep it, I can either let you have it or get another copy. The MAC did a cover and then a centerfold, or center spread anyway, article on the 100th anniversary of the Legion, and then featured some MAC members, of course, and the MAC was a big, had a big influence over bringing founding the Legion and bringing the organizing caucus here to St. Louis, and of course has always had close ties with Soldiers Memorial. So Mark hosted them here last week, Thursday evening, or I don't know, did you have a count on what?
It was between 150 and 200. Was the
Okay.
number I got.
And we had just under 200 at the luncheon.
Yeah.
And more than half of those people were from out of town, I think.
Yeah, it was great. Well, there was Arkansas, Colorado, Montana.
13 or 14 states,
Yeah.
plus a bunch of bigwigs from the headquarters in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So we had a really nice crowd.
This is very cool, the STL storytelling line. That's very cool. On June 6th.
Yeah, at the MAC.
Yeah.
You have a concept similar to that, don't you?
Well, I mean, sort of, but I think the way they're doing this is
Pass it
very
on
interesting.
around for people to see, and then
I will, I'll take a.
I'll be sure that you have a copy.
Sorry, I can never stay on the page that you want.
Next on the agenda, so is Memorial Operations Report.
Certainly.
Yeah. So I did just want to say, oh, that's okay. I was just writing a note, so it sounded like I was done. I did really want to say that for the reception here on Thursday night, and then again, a big ceremony outside on Friday morning, that you guys did a fabulous job.
Thanks.
I'm a district chaplain, so I had to come give the invocation and leave because of being responsible for the project downtown at the MAC. I was amazed at the number of artifacts that turned up from, I don't know, did you have time to look at them?
Yeah,
From the
I chatted a little bit.
Since posts 1, 2, 3, and 4 were all Missouri posts, and they were the first 4 posts founded for the American Legion. I called each one of them to see if they had artifacts from the time of founding that they would like to display, because I knew we were going to display a few things in the ballroom, and then we offered tours of the veterans room at the MAC. We got a lot of takers. And so we got in some kind of interesting stuff. And, you know, there might come a point with, like post 1, the Clinton Roosevelt post meets down at the Altenheim, and what's going to happen to their artifacts when they finally fold or merge with another post, I don't know.
Didn't we have a meeting there? She did a presentation at Post One when we were creating the Soldiers to Move.
Down at
American Legion.
Altenheim.
Which was the one that we did?
Oh, to 422 in Sundlov.
That was a, yeah, sorry.
So, I mean, they had some interesting picture books from following the 35th Division in World War I, and then another book with a few pictures following the 128th Artillery. And their founder was a member of that 128th Artillery. They were mostly guys from St. Louis who served in 128th under the 35th Division in World War II. So there was some neat history in those materials. Just the kind of things that you want to have for reference materials if nothing else.
Right.
So, in any event, it went extremely well, and all of us sincerely appreciate the opportunity to celebrate with them at Centennial.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Those memorial operations report.
Yeah, first, so we met, pulled together an advisory group last week. The commission was invited. We had some representation, which was good. This is a slideshow. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but I'm going to give you a very quick highlight of what was discussed and kind of where we're at. The heart of the matter is adding additional memorials to the Court of Honor across in Chestnut Street. I don't know if you've noticed, but during the expansion, there were additional, I call them tablets, added to the Court of Honor that are currently blank, with the idea being that they would be added to. So the proposal is to add all those individuals from 1976 onward, basically post-Vietnam, being that there already is a Vietnam memorial in the Court of Honor, which was the last one added, which was happened in 1979, along with the Korean War Memorial. And so there's no representation basically after Vietnam in the Court of Honor. So the idea is to add those individuals who have died in service, the criteria being that they lived in the St. Louis metropolitan statistical area at some point in their life, could claim residency there. That area includes 8 Illinois counties and I believe 7 Missouri counties. It's on page 4 of the handout. It shows a map. Essentially, the MSA is the fancy language is that it's a core area containing a substantial population nucleus. It includes adjacent communities with a high degree of economic and social integration with that core. I basically sum that up as it's people who live close enough to St. Louis that commonly refer to themselves as St. Louisans when they're talking to people and introducing themselves, so to speak. So that is one criteria. The other criteria to be added is that they were in service on active duty or activated National Guard and or Reserve. The dates are 1976 through the present. Cause of death is not a contributing factor, so we're not looking just at individuals who were, say, killed in action or died of some disease while in theater during a conflict. Not looking just at those, but basically individuals who died while in service. The other location of death is also not a contributing factor, so they didn't need to be deployed in Iraq and die there to be included. Those things are not factors. Must have been in one of the 5 branches of armed services. Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard. So that's the criteria. The sources that we've used to find these individuals, it's not as clean cut as you might think. Although I would say definitely since the World War I cenotaph, the World War II efforts to memorialize the Court of Honor, even Vietnam and the Korean War, those memorialization efforts I think were We've advanced, I would say, as a culture or society, making that information accessible and collected in one location, but it's not 100% foolproof, you could say. But that was that defense casualty analysis system was the primary source. Most of that, especially through 2006, is held at the National Archives and Records Administration. The rest of it is held through what's called the Defense Manpower Data Center. So these were our two sources. Our now admin assistant, Molly Rose, who was employed for basically 1.5 to 2 years by us, was extensively researching the existing memorials out there and adding information to those individuals who are currently listed. So if you go into the lobby, into the east lobby, there's an interactive kiosk, and you can touch on that and you can find individuals whose names are on the memorials here, and it provides a much deeper level of information, so you can find out where these individuals live, maybe their jobs before service, their parents' names, whether or not they were married, their spouses' names. It really kind of brings life to what is otherwise just a name on a tablet. So Molly spent the last 2 years researching that, and then in addition to researching the existing, she's been building this list of individuals who will be added to those tablets that are awaiting the memorialization in the engraving. That's kind of the down and dirty. I'd be happy to take questions and field any comments at this point.
Are there any questions from Mark?
It was a good meeting.
Yeah, it was
There were
good.
a lot of questions raised, and I think they were answers for everything.
Yeah, we
I
had
don't think there was anything left hanging about, why or how or what. So you guys have really done a lot of detailed work with decision trees or whatever
yeah.
to get the criteria figured out.
It's definitely the type of thing that puts you through kind of a lot of mental challenges, and when you think about things like criteria and trying to define that scope of who will be included, and which also means who is not included, it's challenging. So we did definitely have a lot of staff discussions and back and forth on that. All of that, so my next bullet here, the Memorial Day participation. So the plan is on Memorial Day, 10 a.m. on the 27th, the actual day. On the front steps here, we are going to basically read the names of all of those who will be memorialized on the new memorials. So that'll be kind of the first announcement, you could say, public address of the individuals who will be added. We'll have flags in the Court of Honor in the grassy courtyard area representing each one of those individuals. And then we'll also, during this ceremony, we'll give kind of a brief background of the Court of Honor, because I think a lot of the public don't really understand its connection to Soldiers Memorial necessarily. So we'll give a little bit of a background on the history of the Court of Honor and why this addition makes sense at this point, and kind of how we'll move forward from here. But what I would like to know is if there's anybody, and you don't have to answer now, but you do have to answer soon because it's approaching quickly. But if anybody would like to be an individual who reads some of those names and during that ceremony, please just let me know, and we'll save a spot on the platform, the podium, so to speak.
I have a business meeting with my Legion group tomorrow, and I'll see if I can round up some volunteers.
How many names are you going to be reading?
There's 554 names, so there's,
How many people would you like to read?
I was kind of just waiting to see what kind of response we got, but I think, if we had 10 individuals, that would be great. That's over 50 names a person. So we could go even higher, but it should work out to be about, the math that I did, it's about 35 minutes to read that many names. So certainly,
What time is that ceremony going to be?
It'll be at 10 a.m. And
So
post,
it's probably 10 to noon.
yeah, we'll be done by noon. Post 422 is working with Post 77 American Legion posts to do the raising of the flag at the beginning of the ceremony, so they'll be represented as well.
And be
404, did you say?
Excuse me?
Did you say 404 or 422?
422, yeah.
422 and 77.
Yeah, so 77 is going to march the flags out and turn them over to 422, who's going to raise both the city and the U.S. flags. And Bruce, you're interested in reading? Thanks.
And I am too.
On the 27th at 10 a.m.? Is that what you
Correct,
said?
yeah.
I'm always out of town.
I think
that
I can
weekend
do it.
with my family. I'll see what I can do. I
Okay.
think I have a couple of guys that would be interested,
Okay.
at least a couple.
And it's pretty, it'll be a solemn kind of just not big showy event, but it'll be nice and kind of a reverent thing, and focusing just on paying some respects and getting this kind of process, that it's kind of the initiation of this process. Then over the summer, the actual engraving will take place, and then during the Veterans Day week, we're going to find a way to wrap in kind of a unveiling, you could speak, of the engraved tablets at that time. But we want
ready to do the brick program by then too.
Yep. So I can get to that in a bit. The bricks, for sure. So. Any other questions or? Okay. And if you need, pass out the slides. If you take them home and you read them and you have a comment or a thought, please contact me. I'll wait for the flag retirement ceremony to talk quickly about the bricks. The brick engravings, the ones that we have at this point, they were set to begin on May 6th. With all the rain that was that preceding week, they held off. They were going to attempt to come today, but they need me to be out there to help with placement, and I couldn't squeeze it into today's schedule, so we're setting the time next week. So we'll get the first engravings started hopefully next week, depending on if the contractor stays true to word and the rest of it.
And it doesn't rain again?
Yeah, and it doesn't rain again. So this 90 degrees is probably doing a good job of baking them dry out, hopefully.
We're adding a lot, we're getting to amounts of bricks.
Yeah, I think we're at, I want to say 27 or 28 was the last I saw, the number of bricks. So yeah, I think we're pleased with that. And then of course, once people can see it, that'll definitely be a spur as well. So, the flag retirement ceremony is happening this year. We're happy to kind of continue that. I thought I had notes on that. Essentially, it's Sunday. It's set for Sunday, June 16th at 10 a.m. And there is no change to the format. Mike Klingeman is at Post 422 is essentially taking the lead on that. So there'll be the same aspects of folding the flags and teaching youth to fold the flags properly. That whole educational aspect of it that's happened in the past will continue. There's really no change in format, and that's kind of in line with our desire to there were a lot of events that were already happening at Soldiers prior to the renovation, so to continue those ones, but then also add in new educational programs. There's no point in getting rid of the flag ceremony. It was a great program. I've talked to Linnea more than once about it, about the strengths of it, the involvement of the kids, just kind of, it was a nice ceremony. So that will continue in the same fashion.
Are you going to develop ability to take donations of the flags?
Yes,
here?
thank you. Yeah, and that will resume. So we'll again become a kind of depository for folks who are looking to retire flags, and then we need to look at turning those over to 422 right now for display.
Currently.
Yeah.
I've got a load to take down from Post 4.
I thought that their discussion, so another thing with the Legion that happened last week, which I was particularly excited about, was District 11 and 12 came back to meet, and it was the first time since reopening, so they came back and held their meeting in this room, which was great. It was interesting talking to Post 422. They have a tremendous backlog of these, I call it a backlog, I don't know what else to call it, of flags that have come from these retirement ceremonies, and they were discussing that it is extremely difficult to dispose of these flags. Part of disposal involves actually burning the flags, and the flags that are being turned into them are so filled with polyesters and different plastics and things of that nature that it creates this tremendous black, thick smoke haze, and so that they're actually struggling with finding like a reasonable place to actually hold this kind of disposal.
They can also be buried.
Yeah, so that I did not know, but I thought that it was an interesting start to a conversation that maybe we need to find another way to, if we can't burn these things, these retired flags to.
I'm president of the cemetery, and we do paper flags.
Okay.
Organizations are prayer books for congregations and such.
Okay.
Is that something that we could work with Jefferson Barracks?
Probably.
Pardon?
Is that something we could work with Jefferson Barracks, or because they're federal, would that be like
I would think so. It's a federal
Yeah.
facility.
yeah.
I'm a member of Post 422, and at their meetings, they're really struggling with this. I mean, it's come up during, I think, every meeting that I've been there. I have not been into their basement, but they talk about just having volumes and volumes of these flags that they need to dispose of. And I think they're kind of like, they feel like there's some inertia. They're stuck kind of like trying to find a way
Yeah,
to
they
do
volunteered
this.
to keep the flags when we closed Soldiers Memorial. And so all the other posts haul
Okay.
all
Take
the
them
flags
down.
that get turned into them, just like we have a box at both the MEC West and downtown. And we get tons of retired
Yeah.
flags. And we're glad that they're not just throwing them in the trash.
Right. Right. So that's the flag retirement ceremony.
Before we go on to the next one, yesterday I attended a funeral. It was a military funeral, and they with the bugle, and it was very touching. And had the casket first. They put the American flag on the casket, and then people followed the casket to the grave site. And they did the part of the ceremony, and then blew the bugle, and then they folded it in such a manner, and then they presented it to the widow. Very touching.
Yeah, the number for the cemetery, we've got an old yellow pages or white pages. There's one around here somewhere. The direct phone number to the Jefferson Barracks Cemetery is there.
Okay.
And it should be available online too, although everybody tries to push everyone to use the web. But if that doesn't turn it up, our program chairman has had the most recent guy who's in charge down there speak to us and would have that phone number.
I just found one here. Jefferson Barracks Cemetery,
Okay.
314-845-8320.
I don't know. It's been a while since I buried my husband. So,
Next on the agenda, Mark, is the acquisitions committee.
I'm going to hold off on one thing. For operations, I'm going to turn this over to Karen. Karen's going to share some good news.
The renovation of Soldiers has been getting a lot of attention, which is very nice. We want to pass around a few items. The magazine is the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and they did a 2-page spread, and then 2 different St. Louis business journals. But recognition, there have been several national recognitions such as the World War I Centennial Commission, which selected Soldiers Memorial as one of their 100 sites for the 100th anniversary. The other national award we will be receiving in June, and that's from the Paralyzed Veterans of America, and they have a barrier-free program. And Stanley Brown, who many of you know, was one of our advisors as we were working on introducing universal design to the renovated Soldiers Memorial, and he nominated the project. A committee came down from Washington, D.C., and they selected Soldiers to receive the award this year. And so that ceremony is going to be on Tuesday, June 4th at 2 in the afternoon. You need to RSVP by the 21st to pva.org. And I thought that was something that some of the commissioners might be very interested in
Say
attending.
that web address again.
It's on your sheet. It's just RSVP at pva.org. But it was very nice to receive that national recognition. We've are also going to be receiving our lead certification in a ceremony that will be on Wednesday, August 7th. There are 2 St. Louis cultural organizations that have achieved gold lead status. And because of that, they are sending a delegation once again from Washington, D.C. My understanding, the time is still being determined, but my understanding is they're going to do a ceremony in the morning on that Wednesday at the Arch, because they received lead gold for new construction of their underground museum. And then in the afternoon, we will have a ceremony here for receiving gold for the renovation of Soldiers Memorial. The next week, on Thursday, the 23rd in the evening, the Landmarks Association of St. Louis is having an event here in the evening. They are honoring the most enhanced buildings over the last year, and Soldiers is receiving one of their awards. That is a ticketed event. If you're a member of the Landmarks Association, it's $20 through Eventbrite, and if you're not, it's $30. But that event is next Thursday evening. And then it was very nice, I guess a week and a half ago, Mark and I represented Soldiers at a ceremony in the Rotunda at the state capitol, and Missouri Preservation Alliance honored the renovation of Soldiers.
And that's going to be in the evening?
The Landmarks, yes, it's an evening event. So,
Sorry.
it's okay. But so just wanted to share with you the nice recognition that the project has been receiving.
I just think back to those first days when I was on the commission. And just can't believe we are where we are. It's just like a fairy godmother came along and waved her wand. It wasn't exactly that easy, was it?
It's nice to remember it that way, though.
It's 2 days at the end of the table and Rich, we all remember that well.
You know, we just blinked our eyes and it was done. Clicked our
Clicked
heels.
our heels. That's right.
Soldiers Memorial Acquisitions Committee.
Yeah, I could just give you a brief update on some collections activities. The Acquisitions Committee met recently. Just real briefly, some of the objects that they took in were some photos and archival materials from Legion Post 380. These included some photos that were taken by a service member in the Pacific Theater and over in the Philippines. One other donation was that was accession were 2 maquettes of the statues at Soldiers Memorial. These were donated from the son who was the son of the last owner and principal architect of Moran, Russell, and Crowell. And the donor, he wasn't 100% certain, but he believes that his father was given the maquettes by Walker Hancock, who of course did them. So that was kind of a neat, interesting, it's a great succession. There's a Vietnam era heliotrope. These were used for basically sighting, using the sun to sight long distant ranges for either artillery or for, could also be used in surveying. So that was interesting. There was a collection of items from the Pentagon that were in the Pentagon on September 11th, 2001. They were donated by then Major Grant Dottie, and that's a really neat small collection, but one thing that it includes was his form that he had to submit to the government for reimbursement of his personal artifacts that were inside of his office that were destroyed during the attack. One of them was for a rock CD, which band I'm forgetting now, but very personal connection. Kind of a neat, really neat connection to that. One was another oral history by George Carper, a World War II airplane mechanic and crew chief at Morton Field. And then the furniture items, a sample of furniture items that were in Soldiers Memorial prior to the renovation. So this was a card table, some of the folding chairs, a chair set from the assembly hall, just kind of a representative sample of that historic furniture. So far, I just run some numbers by you real quickly. Total number of items inventoried since the beginning of the project is just under 12,000. When talking to Shay Henryon, who's our collections manager, she informed me that when they began the project, they were estimating that there was 10,000 items in the collection. The new estimate puts it at around 15,000. So quite a few more, and where they're at now means they're about 2/3 of the way through inventorying those items. Put 4,090 artifacts are currently online and searchable and viewable and readable through the Missouri Historical Society website. So those are just a few collections items. And I rest, unless we got questions.
Any other questions for Mark? Okay, other questions or new business? Any announcements anybody wants to make?
So just two items real quickly. First of all, I just wanted to show, I probably recognize Linnea and our Parks Department for the work they did on the American Legion Monument. Still a little bit of work to do. We're looking at possibly putting a little fence around it to keep the homeless people off of it, but I believe that her work with the American Legion is outstanding, so thank you for that. And then second, I just want to give a real brief update on Tom Gilmore. If you weren't here when we started the meeting, we talked a little bit about Tom. So in about late February, Tom had some very serious health issues. I don't want to get into the details. That's relatively private, I think, with him. He was put into Barnes Hospital. He was there for a number of weeks, and then he was moved to Bethesda out in Kirkwood, I believe. And he currently is residing at Delmar on the Gray Knot Chesterfield. I don't think he will be returning to Radisson. I need to talk with the mayor to see how she wants to handle that. If you would like to talk with Tom, you can still dial his cell phone number, and he still does answer. 314-832-2028. So I'm sure he would love to hear from you. He still calls me regularly. But I would ask that you say a prayer for him, because I know it's a pretty tough time for him and his wife. So we appreciate that.
Any other announcements? Comments? What, Linnea, you're talking about the flag or something?
Oh, I believe that we will have the flag replaced soon in front of 1520 Market. It should be. So I've been working with Joe Blitzy on that. Yes.
I know you have Flag Day coming up and a couple other things, and then
I think,
Memorial Day.
yeah, Mark talked about the Flag Day, so we're good.
I have one more thing that I would mention. So focused on this building all the time, but some of the crew here are going up to Greenwood Cemetery this Saturday to help do some cleanup at the cemetery and then place flags on veterans' graves at that cemetery as well.
Someone up by the airport, isn't
Right. So just some outreach efforts. So we're doing things not just here, but also in the community as well.
Since our last meeting, a gentleman who was very active with this committee, I don't know if he was a commissioner or not, Kim Tucci, passed away. That was a big loss for us and for the city. To comment on that. There's no other business to come before this committee. May I call for the adjournment?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.